means stimming. You know what stimming? Like stimming is like rocking back and forth,
Okay,
clicking,
okay.
and all those things.
I actually did not know that, but thank you.
Yeah, so like that's I kind of I got to know the other campus. And I told him, well, that's kind of something I do, and he was like, oh, that's okay, man. Like I got your back. I have a cousin who does the same thing. So it's kind of like there. That's the first thing I ever heard before, that there were other people who do that when I was when I was younger. So
Was he was I'm just curious, was he autistic or non-autistic, or did he like have like a similar like disability as you? Is that what he understood, or did he know somebody with autism? Is that why he understood it when you told him?
um when they when I first found out about I at that time no one knew what autism was,
Oh, okay.
but well, not the majority of people knew, but think there was some connection there. It's kind of like when I said there was something there, and
Right.
now I was able to see it.
Okay.
Hmm.
For me, I had a small circle of friends that knew I had autism, but when I went to school, I didn't tell anybody I had autism. I just kind of hid it. I mean, I didn't. I mean, and when I was doing some of the quirks in school, as much as I did at home, some people were sensing something, that something was wrong, either wrong with me, or some people just didn't care. I mean, but that's just the general situation of how I would go through autism in school. Even showing my cartoons and flip books, even though it helped me out a lot as the icebreaker, there were still like quirks that people were sensing before I would show them the cartoon, and that would be their first impression between me and them, and that they wouldn't, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
But yeah, I only had a small group of friends that knew I had autism before I started putting it on Facebook later in 2014, and telling, like, and expressing it more and more in after 2014. So, and that became so much better because everybody started accepting me for who I am as a whole person in my life, from
Right.
home to school to work, everything. And there's nothing to hide from that story. That's and there were and it made me feel like the best after and more people started knowing.
Right.
So that's where I get to the questions of, were there any dangers or repercussions of hiding autism?
Right. That and before we get into that, I think we let's in before we get into that, I think it's good that we like explain what masking autism is. So
Okay, yes.
masking autism is when you have to hide like certain attributes of a person. They, in a way, for example, you have like don't like express some of your narrow interests, trying to give full eye contact, trying to give full attention, not using, as well as like not seeming like your characteristics, not having your characteristics presented.
Or expressing your characteristics as, much as bright as big as possible too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's what masking autism is.
Or you feel like you have, or also you feel like you have to hide it because of, also, I mean, I also have like a fear of judgment too. There's many reasons of why people hide autism as well. So yes, were there any but yes, as I was saying, were there any dangers that you found out or that you recognized as you were hiding autism? Or
Well, it's just funny you say that, because a lot of it had to do when I was younger, when I was a young kid. And for instance, when I was younger, I had to hide certain things, like especially stimming. It felt like I had to hide my stimming and rocking, even though to me it was like kind of natural for me to do that.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, um, and eye contact was was kind of you know hard for me.
It still gets hard too. To
Yeah,
this day, it still gets hard.
that's
But
something I had to hide. Another thing that I had to hide with it would be um with my was also kind of like my interests. I was at first, I was afraid people would find it weird that these are things I would talk about constantly, or it'd be weird that I have interest in them, all of that. And yeah, just things such as that really would kind of like something I had to hide. Later.
what did you find out that was like? What did you find out that was a repercussion, or like, or what did you was it? What repercussions did you like find out?
Um, for me, the repercussions I found out were had to be in regards to the like. For instance, I had.
Like accommodation, like maybe like if you didn't tell them you had autism or like a disability, with some people, when they see quirks like what we do, they get mean sometimes. And I'll tell you first that what I found out is that people like they just, I'm doing some of these quirks and they don't know me, and they might, and from and some people from where they grow up, they might have a different background than me, and I have to respect that.
Mm-hmm,
But knowing that, they can get mad too,
right.
and if I don't tell them that I had autism first, they might be mean, they might they just simply just be mean to me,
Mm-hmm,
in any way, shape, or form, and that's
exactly.
why I tell them that I have autism. In the moment it happens, like they're getting mad and they say, why are you nervous? I remember a time actually that I had somebody I was working with,
Mm-hmm,
and I was walking pacing back and forth in the kitchen because I
yeah.
worked at a pizza shop at one time. But he asked me, I was getting nervous. I'm like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. Like, this is something I usually do. Like one of my quirks I usually do. I usually pace back and forth all
Yeah,
the
that's
time.
something I also do
Yeah,
as
I
well.
always pace back and forth. And he said, I told him, listen, I have autism. And he started like he started getting more comfortable as after I told him that. And that was exactly what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest is history, like he became more nicer to me and more accommodating.
Yeah.
So one of the dangers I realized was that you don't get accommodate, like people are smart sometimes, man, and they recognize what we do, and
Mm-hmm.
they can interpret it in any way they want. So if they and like I said, sometimes they can be mean. So that's why when I say it like that, it makes them more understandable,
Mm-hmm.
especially now that autism is more aware. you know it's people can be more accommodating to it.
Right.
And i and like I said, the biggest danger repercussion I found out is if you will be mistaken for a bad person, or someone on like or some weird person, or even someone on drugs have been interpreted as that before. So that's why, as an adult. But anyway, that's what it was for my repercussion. And I found out a lot more repercussions and dangers of hiding autism as an adult too, because not a lot of nice people in this world sometimes.
Yeah, that's true. That's the unfortunate part. For me, I felt I wasn't myself hiding things. It just wasn't myself. Like, I know there were things, social cues to learn like that, and that's different. Learning more social cues, which I was able to do better with, especially during college.
All right.
So I was able to do more of that. but to fully hide it, like, is like kind of denying myself. And the thing I follow is I don't want to live a lie.
Right.
One of the things I
Oh, I
don't
know.
want
No
to
one
live a
wants to live a
lie.
lie, man. No one does. That's I'm
Mhm.
glad you just said that too, man. Because I'm glad you just said that. That's awesome. Now, I'm thinking right now, but yeah, you don't really enjoy life when you're hiding autism too. I mean, you don't really enjoy life, and that's what you're simply saying.
Mhm.
I get
Yeah,
that.
and the thing is, like, I want to enjoy. You can't, and that's true. You know, I want to enjoy life. I
If
want to
you
make.
know people are going to recognize what we do, then that's that, and it all intertwines. You know,
Absolutely.
both those repercussions intertwine. They do. So
They do.
that was I'm glad we just talked about that, but I'm sure there had to be something in our minds that made us hide autism somehow. And I could be the first to tell you what made me hide autism is simply the fear of judgment. Like I said, when I had autism, when I found out I had autism and I told my friends that, they didn't care. They just liked me for the way I was when I
Right.
met them. But the
Mhm.
people in school, it was different because when I would go there, I mean, yeah, even like I said, even though I show cartoons all the time, some people would first recognize me as like the kid doing all those quirks. But I don't know. I didn't really think of it that way at first because I was so young.
Mhm.
So I mean, this is looking. I'm talking as I'm looking back at it right now. But I didn't really think about that. I just kind of thought they didn't like me because of, no matter what. So, and even if I showed them cartoons, so I just kind of like, I kind of let that get to me, and it kind of hit autism because of that for a little while. And getting picked on didn't help either. So, I mean, that's kind of what made me hide autism for the most part. But what about you?
For me, like, you mean by hiding autism? What made me hide it?
Yeah, like, or what made you hide autism? Like, what was like? Was there a moment that made you hide autism, or was there a simple, or was there like any simple thing?
Well, like I said, when I was a kid, like, I just not knowing what, I didn't know what it was. I didn't know, like, I had kind of like how to hide it that way. But you know, as time went on, I mostly had to, I was seemed more comfortable talking once I met someone, and I got to know them more. I was able to disclose it, and everything, and for the most part, things were fine. And and the people who I met through, especially from college onwards, like, they liked me for who I was, not just because I was autistic. So it was just learning about that. And also, there was this one time where this was like my the second job I had out of out of grad school. It was like I was at this job from 2016 to 2019, and the first super like I was going to be working with autistic youths up in Burlington, northern Burlington County, and I thought, I met my first supervisor. I kind of disclosed myself to her, telling her, that I was autistic, and a while downwards, she kind of said, people are taken aback that you say you're autistic, like, kind of like taken aback.
Is that it was at that moment you decided to hide it?
Well, it was kind of like a moment where I felt,
You felt like you didn't want to express your autism, or I mean, express that you have autism as much as you did before that moment.
well, it it's like I question myself: should I be ashamed of telling people this? Because I didn't feel like I was doing anything wrong.
So it got you thinking.
Yeah, it got me thinking, and with the anxiety I have from my autism, she also said, in a way, I see your anxiety as incompetence, which